Hi guys. So my cold in general feels a lot better. I still have my cough. I'm still kind of struggling with it. Like, I swear, it feels like the cough that just won't quit. But anyway, I'll try to crop out all the coughing in the video. Sorry in advance if I do cough. I can't help it. Yeah, there's that. So anyway, top 5 materials I cannot do without when sculpting BJD. Or anything in general. Top 5 sculpting materials I can't do without. So the first thing on the list is clay. I use Ladol natural stone clay. That's what this doll is sculpted out. The tongue is epoxy clay, and I filled in the gaps with epoxy clay, but the main doll is sculpted with this stuff. It's freaking amazing. It's an air dry clay. It's easy to sand, it's easy to carve, you can paint it. It cures pretty hard. It's still breakable, it's still fragile if you're not careful, but it cures pretty hard. It is $12, but online is $12, and then you have to pay shipping, so it eventually comes to like $18. However, some Michaels stores do sell this clay for $12, and if you have a 40% off coupon, great, like you can get it for super cheap. A cheaper alternative to this clay is Das air dry clay, which is I think it's like, no, this clay is $16 at Michaels, and if you use a 40% off coupon, it takes the price down. It's like $15-16, about the same as polymer clay. And Das is $11, but if you use the coupon, it takes it down to $7 and some change. I don't really have a lot of experience with Das air dry clay, so I can't really like say a lot about it. I'm still experimenting. I actually got some the other day, and I'm using it to sculpt a doll, so I should have a review on this channel soon. But some people swear by Das air dry clay. So far, first impressions, when I first opened the pack of the clay, it smelled really strong. I don't know if it's because I don't know if it was a bad batch, I don't know, but it didn't smell pleasant. It smelled pretty bad. And every time I tried to like knead the clay, it wasn't like, it's not smooth. It was kind of crumbly. I tried to take a picture and insert it somewhere on the screen, but I used a lot of water, and no matter how much I tried to smooth it, it just wouldn't smooth. However, let me tell you, it cures really, oops, sorry, I'm shaking the camera. It cures really hard. I haven't tried to sand it yet, but I don't know, I'm still experimenting. $7, like, I mean, if you're sculpting a doll on a budget, the clay, that's one of the most important things, and if you can get it for like $7, why not? I'm kind of spoilt by Ladol though. I really love this clay, and although I'm kind of poor, when I have a little money left over, I go and I try to like get good clay. I love Ladol. Like, good clay can make the difference between a pleasant experience or just I want to rip my hair out. You can also use polymer clay, although I wouldn't recommend polymer clay for sculpting BJD, because sometimes when you test string it too much, even if you're using a light tension, it's too much and the pieces break, and it's very annoying to have to go back and fix things. So I recommend an air dry clay like Ladol, or if you're going for the cheaper end of air dry clays, I would say Das. Ladol Premier is also good, but there are a lot of fibers in there, and as well Created paper clay, it's okay, but it's not as strong from my experience. I could have probably just been using it wrong, but from my experience, it's not as strong, and it also had a lot of fibers in there. So Ladol natural stone clay, and I'm going to continue testing out this Das clay, and I'll let you guys know how well that turns out. Quick tip: air dry clays, and oh, the third one, my bad, you can also use epoxy sculpt. This is actually part B. It comes as a 2-part, clay. You mix it. It's very strong. The only thing about it is it's hard to sand, and it's hard to carve at. So yeah, if you're using this clay, try to get it as smooth as possible when you're working. Otherwise you'll have a hard time at the end. It's also very difficult to clean out the inside of the sculpt. So when you're doing it, when you're using this clay, I would just say sculpt thinly, and then add some more clay on the inside to strengthen things. Also, if you use aluminum foil as a core for epoxy sculpt, you will never be able to get that last layer of foil out unless you sand at it or use a Dremel. Actually, a Dremel is kind of recommended for power tools in general, are recommended if you're using epoxy sculpt. So yeah. So quick tips for clay. You can actually put air dry clay and epoxy clay in the a toaster oven, like a craft oven, at a low temperature to help speed up the curing time. Never a microwave though, because if there's an air pocket in there, it'll blow up. So that's it for clay. Now the second most important material that I cannot live without while sculpting BJD is, or anything in general, is aluminum foil. You can get this stuff from the dollar store for $1 flat. So basically you just kind of roll it up into a ball. You can make it like a flat ovally thing. You can roll into a ball for the head, a flat ovally thing for the torso, or you can just make it into like spherical shapes for like the for like the limbs and stuff, and then you put your clay over this. I don't really have a special preference for aluminum foil. It's all the same, so I just pretty much, yeah, use that. So the third thing that I cannot live without are measuring spoons. Okay, so I go to the dollar store, and every time I go to the dollar store, I swear I pick up a new set of measuring spoons, and I have these in different sizes. When I'm planning out my doll and when I'm doing my sketch, I have these on hand. I put it on the paper to measure how big they are and how big each joint is going to be, and then I use this to sculpt my joints. The spheres, because I cannot sculpt a spherical shape freehand. Well, I can, but it's a lot of work, and I would rather just use this shortcut. I've been using measuring spoons forever, and it just, I don't know, it just makes my life easier. Anything to make my life easier. I do anything to make my life easier. So measuring spoons, every time I go out to the store, I look for measuring spoons, although I never spend more than $1 on a measuring spoon because I just don't. Yeah. I get a lot of use out of these. As you can see, it's dirty. And that's another good segue into the next materials that I use the most while sculpting BJD that I can't do without. Well, I can do without, but I would rather not. So I use these guys. These are called clay shapers. I have them in various shapes. I have them in various shapes, and they have different functions. So these ones were the most expensive. Oops, excuse me. These ones were the most expensive in the bunch when I purchased them. I don't remember how much I bought them. I bought a set of the smallest ones, and then I picked these up individually. However, I went to Michael's and I found this set, and I forget how much they originally cost, but I used a 40% coupon and it came to like $5. So you can get clay shapers for really, really cheap. These are really, really helpful. I use them for where I use my hands mostly when I sculpt dolls, but wherever my fingers can get to, I use these to help me out. So clay shapers. X-Acto knife. This is the fifth one, I believe. This is my fifth most important thing that I use. X-Acto knife. I use this stuff all the time. I use it to sand, carve, when I have too much, not to sand, to scrape. So when I'm doing the faces and stuff, I kind of use it to like just gently scrape in the details, and then I use it to like carve at where I have too much clay and stuff like that. I use it to carve shapes in. Yeah, I use it for pretty much everything. So there's this. Yeah. So bonus materials that I cannot do without. I cannot do without super glue. I have to have super glue on hand because, oh, it's so washed out, isn't it? Jeez. Okay, I have to have super glue on hand. This is actually low side super glue, but it really doesn't matter what brand super glue is as long as it's a super glue and it gets the job done. For instance, when I was working on this doll, and I was actually when I was sculpting this face plate, this ear, you know what, let me put it on the face so that way you can kind of get an idea of what's going on here. Okay, so when I'm using a rubber band because I haven't put I'm not going to fit the elastic until after the doll is cast. So when I was working on this particular face plate, this ear, I was using the X-Acto knife to kind of like carve the shapes in, and this ear fell off. Now I could have used the doll clay to kind of like just, you know, I could have scored it, wet it, and put the clay and waited for it to dry, but I didn't feel like waiting for it to dry, so I just used super glue. I dabbed a little bit on there, put it there, waited for it to dry. Like, it took less time for it to cure. Then I took some sandpaper and smoothed it in, and now you cannot even see that part broke off. So yeah, super glue. I have to use super glue. I cannot do without elastic cord. If you're sculpting a ball jointed doll, you cannot do without elastic cord, period, because this is what holds elastic cord, or I think some people use springs, but I like elastic because this is what holds the doll together. This is 2mm elastic cord. It's actually a little bit too small for this doll. To be honest, I should be using like 4mm elastic, because when the elastic cord is small, it doesn't really help with posability. But you know what, like, it's what I have right now and it works. So elastic cord, paper clips, and wire cutters to cut the paper clips. Now here's what I use paper clips for. When you're jointing your doll, you need to have something to hold on to the elastic. So if you look closely, I don't know if you can see, it's so washed out. Wait, let me push this out here. Haha. So if you look closely right there, that's the paper clip. I have paper clips going through all the main parts, like the wrists and the ankles, to hold the elastic throughout the doll. So that's what I use paper clips for. Sandpaper. I don't have any sandpaper to show you guys because it's in the kitchen, but I use sandpaper to smooth out the doll. If it's made out of something stronger like epoxy clay, I will use a rasp. This one is rusted, sorry about that, but this is the one I have. Yeah, sandpaper and rasp. And the final bonus material that I use, the bonus materials I can live without, but I use them anyway because it makes things a lot easier. So I'm sure you've noticed that the sculpt isn't white anymore. It's a nice matte, even gray. Well, not completely even because I need to go back and spray some bits, but it's a nice matte gray tone. And here's what I do. I use primer. So this is a Rust-Oleum, I think it's Rust-Oleum primer. I got this from Walmart for, I think it was $4, and I pretty much just use it to spray the whole doll. Then I sand and I spray and rinse and repeat. Although you cannot use this indoors because the fumes are ridiculous. So yeah, I take it outside and I spray and prime my doll, and yeah, get things smooth. That is pretty much all. That's all the stuff I use to sculpt a doll. Some of the stuff I listed I don't use, but it's helpful sometimes depending on what material you're using to have it. But the first 5, that's what I use to sculpt a doll, and those are the materials I cannot do without when sculpting a BJD. Thank you for watching the video. If you're interested in videos like this, please like and subscribe. This particular doll is pretty much finished. I'm thinking about doing a pre-order for her, so if any of you are interested in a pre-order for this little one, follow me on Instagram at Poochbot, and that's where I'm going to do the I'll try to do an announcement video on YouTube as well. But if you're interested in a pre-order for this doll, follow me on Instagram, and that's where I'll post all the details and stuff like that. Thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe if this is what you're into. Happy holidays, you guys, and yeah, have a good one.